So here I am on the next one. Yes, our Build Your Adventure space series. Yeah, a couple of days ago when I hadn't read them again yet, I skimmed through these, and these are Space Time I, the book series. These are actually a mid-series early draft that were printed up, but they virtually have the same dialogue. The later, there's maybe the 2016 draft that was printed up by accident as an earlier version of it, for Space Time I. However, it's almost identical to the 2018 and the 2019 version that you also have. So I looked that over. They're almost identical. So nothing's missing, nothing's out of turn. A lot of these stories and episodes were kind of rejected Starcrackers and rejected other shows. Canary Space episodes in here. But some of them weren't. Some of them were just ideas inspiring other ideas. But yes, they're very much not Carta. They're not Carta. They're their own thing. They don't exist in a vacuum. We have painted up a bunch of Star Trek figures to be the Zabulveda people, the aliens, those guys. They look kind of uncanny, and yeah, they could. Why not use them as some of them in here, and some of the other aliens? But yeah, yeah, GI Joes would be a little too small, hard to work with. You could use GI Joes, but I wouldn't. So what we're looking at here is a longer run series than Carta. So we're going to make a Carta 2, and also start on what appears to be a Space Time I series. I looked into that. It's only been like 48 hours since that other video from before the other one, earlier one. And there are some good short story episodes, but don't do any of the time travel ones. I understand that you introduce some new and unusual people, but under the same auspice as the other ones. You have you do the Transtech to Mush and Lexicon's method of recording the story. So instead of saying the line 3 times over for a particular character, just pick the best line. So you're going to go down through a page here of a minute of dialogue and kind of memorize it a little bit, and then just do that minute of dialogue from memory. That's probably the easiest way to do that, and then it's faster for one thing, and it's more it would seem more fluid as well. You can transform like the Transtech stuff. This is double spaced printed, and I don't want to have to reprint them over again with a bunch of name changes that don't really work. So we're going to use the names that are in this, even though there's some brand recognition confusion. Alex Gregory is also the name of a footballer in England. But I don't think that's a problem because that name is just, clearly it's not the same guy as a Colonel guy. The original stories appear to, as of the 2019 book, have been set in the 2480s. I'm not going to do that with this version. No, it's a Star Trek spin-off story. It continues the adventures of the Zabulveda people, is what this is. You could totally do that. Say, okay, this is a spin-off. It also has the nature of being as a spin-off in Legacy. It also has the virtue of saying, okay, well, we don't want to deal with those other years that Q messed with, like 2405 and 2406. So we'll follow another crew on another ship going on other adventures. Completely ignoring the other crew with the cadets and everybody for a little while. Let's do that. Yeah, sure. With another crew. So we follow the adventures of these guys who have assumed their names and gone a little nuts after their names came back. Yeah, so that worked. Yeah, so it's 2403, and we continue. This is huge. This is huge. This is a lot of book 1 and a little bit of into book 2, similar to Starcrackers and Canary Space, or Vanguard, Space Vanguards and Canary Space. I wouldn't suggest doing all of those all together. But I'm sure when you go through this that it won't be as long as it looks. You'll be like, okay, there are scenes in this that don't make sense. I'm not filming what this one's saying. Or there'll be scenes that make more sense to expand. Who knows? But probably not. And the idea of having them go a slightly different direction would also be one for the the series as well. It kind of avoids all the pratfalls of the other thing. Kind of says, oh, they were going to do this on purpose. They were going to do another trilogy, but it was going to be with the Sepulveda people that they just introduced. That whole thing was like, just introduce them. Kind of, yeah. And it can be a little Robotech-like if you want as well. There can be a little bit of that in there. There is a little bit of that in the story. They have robots and creatures and stuff. It's not necessarily Carta, though. So we were saying it was Carta. It's not Carta. From what I've read, I've flipped through this. It kind of can't be. It's a Starcrackers spinoff, technically. It's a Vanguard Space spinoff with a little bit of... It's as if Canary Space and Vanguard's had a baby. Be this. Can't call it Space Time Eye. Unfortunately, 3 or 4 different book series have taken that particular variant of that title. And we're not going to do space-time time travel anyway. The time travel stuff episodes that made up this... It was a 2 books... 2-book trilogy. 2-book... they're just 2 books. And mainly these are from book 1, and they're mainly the episodes that don't deal that much with time travel. It does deal with that very old joke from the 90s. Enola Gay, the atomic bombshell, is Sylvia, the other character, who was hinted at in the other one, who has been hinted at in the this season. So it's not like she hasn't been hinted at; she has been. And of course, the joke is that which is kind of a weird joke, is that Enola Gay was the name of the plane that dropped the atomic bomb in Hiroshima. One of the planes. That man, little boy, in Nagasaki. It's kind of offensive that it's an atomic warplane in World War II, but it's also playing on the word gay because she's, which didn't mean that back then. Which is, I'm not sure if she's actually in this anymore because that would be a little bit offensive. But maybe she's, But it goes with this troop group that they encountered. Maybe they just, it's just that Cindy character. She's just back. She's crazy. But yeah, there's they could just get away with that by calling her the atomic bombshell, which kind of kills the joke. But yeah, these you have. But there's a crew of misfits. There was a later Silverfish Squad training story. I don't think that one is in here anymore. I mean, it was in the list, but a cadet training episode where they have to go back to cadet school. We've already kind of done that. We don't really need that episode. If you really want it, it's in there, but it doesn't really need to be. Yes, many years ago, that one short story, which was one of these stories from this collection, the Free Fall story, which was co-written by Mark Cards, was submitted to a company that Mark Card's friend worked at, because I went over there to do an interview, and this is a job interview with this company. It was kind of shady, and they were doing like Gumby stuff. They're gone now, and they were doing other stuff, and apparently they were paranoid. That's all get up about any of their interviewers, and they were asking pointed questions, like, "Did you really write this stuff? Did you really write this?" They were convinced I didn't write it, that I took it from somewhere. Yeah, are they that paranoid about like copyright and stuff? No, it was. Well, they probably met Mark's Cards. That's what it is. But I co-wrote it with him. This is similar. Yeah, double space typed. It's There's some elements of dream stories and older stages set stories. A bunch of names and titles I could ramble off that aren't going to make any sense. But there was like some early rejected stories that have been since redone a couple of times. The stages set, for instance, was a story about that became evolved, changed into the Arbiter. Eventually became the Arbiter. The other one became Differences, then became Fearful Symmetry. Stuff like that. It's like this. So some of those are in. We're not going to use those, obviously. Those stories. Yeah. So there's a lot of character place things in there. There's a lot of characters to follow, and I don't want to have to write character bios for them. Someone else can do that in the future. I would just rather make a story out of the script and see what it looks like, because it's probably very interesting and very different. It's different enough that it's like, oh, this is kind of original and cool and different. All right, let's do this one. But it can't be Carter. It's not a Carter story. If anything, it's sort of like a 24th century, early 25th century Robotech story. Jumping way into the future to see what way after Macross. Further than even Macross did. Wow. Further than Genesis Climber. Wow. But what's interesting is like, was it the Master Saga? Originally in Japan, the Master Saga was called something else. The Planet Glory and Liberta and stuff. And Planet Gloria. And it was actually set in the 2120s. In the Master Saga. And the third one was set in further back in like 2060 or something. And it was devastated, taken over Earth, taken over by the Inbit. And the Liberta base was their go-to. And in that one, of course, the American version of Macross and Space Climber, Macross and Space Cavalry Southern Cross was on Glory. And Space Climber Matsupita was on Liberta. So they have these three different planets. And three discrete series that were cloned and stuck together to make Robotech. And whenever the Expeditionary Force was mentioned, it seemed out of place because it was. They weren't in it. And then later on, different versions of Macross sequels attempted to kind of knit that together. There's the Macross Plus and 7 and Macross 2, which is technically not canon. It was some spin off by other people that did it, but they just didn't like that one. It was 2080. Macross Frontier. So Macross 7. Macross 7 is the 2060s. Macross Frontier kind of jumped back to the 2040s. But then it also says it's later. So it doesn't make sense. Macross Frontier. Macross Delta is even further off. And Macross Delta in the end, we got to watch a Macross Delta movie at one of the conventions. I believe it was one of the Fanimays. It was one of the Fanimays before the pandemic. Got to watch the Macross. And I think it was, yeah. And the whole thing, Macross movie, except for the weird visuals and the. I was thinking as this movie went on and they were discovering the M lady on the planet and all that, and I was like, the only way this is going to work, the build up here, is just thinking it kind of aloud too a little bit. The only way it's going to work is if it's one of those Macross ships fights another Macross ship. No, don't give it away. One of those things. That's actually what happens. At the end of the story, the two Macross. The Mega Road 02 is found. The ship lost in the end of Macross. Do you remember Love? And it comes out and it fights the other one. It fights that new one. Of course. And the lost thing is retconned into the story so that they could add the loss of Lisa Hayes disappears or something, and Hunter disappears so that Max takes over. It's obviously a multiverse. And so they didn't need to do that. And that was just a little bit of I don't think they retconned later. It's not really what happened originally. The Macross 2 wasn't lost. The American continuity, they just screwed up. And they they showed what should have been the first Macross ship getting destroyed by Chiron, and then not another one. And the dialogue was not built Macross. We'll build the SCF-3. That isn't what happened. What happened in the original scene there, when Admiral Gloval's bridge is attacked, they simply go into the battle bridge, and they're on the same ship. It's not destroyed yet, and they activate the battle bridge. That's what they did. They had the backup bridge on the ship. That's all. That's what it was. It wasn't part 2. It wasn't the second ship at all. But yeah, it was. So here we have misfit crew that could be the Wolverine people. We have a ship. We have a crew and on missions and adventures. Sure, why not? That's always fun. And it's not a political thriller. There's elements, but it's goofy. It's strange. It's updated in the 2010s, but it's really the 1990s in terms of the writing of the story. Space Time I. You got to change the name because there's Times I and Arthur C. Clarke. There's a video game that has nothing to do with it. There's that title has been used several times. What was the kind of joke title we wanted to go with? Just because it was, I'll call it Star Trek Travelers or Star Trek Time Corps. So that's kind of what it is. Just call it that. Star Trek Time Corps, as in CORPS, Time Corps. That's fine. So it's actually, that's Time Corps. Even though they don't do any time travel in it, because they're the incompetent ones that don't know how to do it. Yeah, so this is very thick. You're not going to do all of this. This is very thick. That would be insane. I'm thinking like just these 3 trilogy. That's it. Book 1, basically. Probably not even going to get to California Divided or whatever they called it afterward. But yeah. Let's see. This series. Time Corps. But it isn't really Time Corps, Inept Corp. Star Trek. Corporate greed. Yeah, getting flagged by YouTube. Actually, nowadays you get flagged by YouTube if you made it a political thriller. You're like, no, you can't make fun of the dear leader. Fuck. Oh, yes, I can. But yeah, most YouTube is on a threat to that guy, really. Yeah. Why would they be? Fan film. I don't want to watch my fan film. But yeah, so we have different planets and things to go to. Yeah, sort of a Starcrackers thing. It's rejected Starcrackers things. There were a bunch of other scripts in there that didn't include. Yeah, there were. It was also called the Waymarker saga or the Waymaker saga, but obviously we can't use that title either. Brand recognition. Can't use either of those 2 titles. Apparently there's some kind of moratorium on calling it, even though. Yeah, it's hard to find this book series on Amazon because the other space times come up, the other eyes come up, and the other Waymarkers come up. So this is buried among the Calicat books. It's actually under our real names, Brown and Air. That's kind of, makes it hard to find. And then those 2 names are really common. So, doing an adaptation of this is, makes sense. And it can be uncanny and weird and strange and have these sort of made up kind of guys running around in it. All of them sort of Kirks and Spocks and stuff. Sure, why not? Why not do that? That'd be interesting and different. It's different. It's interesting. Space Zombies, the series. We're just call it Star Trek Zombies, the series. Or Starship Zabulveda. After Zabulveda Boulevard, which we were near and going to Disneyland. I saw a lot of the GTA model. The background. Saw the road, fake man. We saw the mountain that was Mount Chiliad. We saw the freeway going to it. We saw some of the went over the LA River. We went the other thing, Terminator. We did not see the Brady Bunch house though. Didn't see that. We saw the other. In the distance we saw the building they used for the Maze Bank. So yeah. But yeah. And as far as I know, even though they were talking about GTA 6, I haven't heard anything in a couple of months since that alleged trailer came out. So I'm thinking fans put it out. It was fake. It wasn't real. Yeah. Because they would be denouncing it, saying, "Oh, I heard it." And it didn't look much better than what they had, really. It was probably someone's fan trailer. That's probably what it was. Yeah. They've kind of stopped talking about that one. Anyway, so, yeah, Space-Time Eye, or whatever we're going to call it. And kind This is Calicat the Calicatster. Let it be known that even on our Chimera channels, we do not actually pirate anything. That pirated productions is a joke, going back to 1986, and that we don't actually pirate anything. It's a joke. Translation and stuff like that is because we do fan films of other people's material. But that's not piracy. That's doing a fan film. That's fair use. We've never done a Milpitas Monster one. Having met with Robert Burrell a couple weeks ago, confirmed that in fact there was somebody else doing piracy of his movies and trailers. We did not do that. We merely interviewed and reviewed some of the characters. That was it. Those reviews remain on one of the other satellite channels, but there was no footage from the movie. Yeah. Last week there was Cadabra, the oldest cat, died. So Cadabra died. So we'll have to dedicate the story to Cadabra, the kitty. Abra's still alive, the second oldest, and then Houdini. And he's, he was 17, and Abra's 17. They're a bonded pair. They're not technically sisters. Houdini is a little younger. He's 11. So. Anyway, so they're cats. Yeah, dedicate to a cat. Also, she gets a lifetime. They all get their lifetime achievement award for having been in cat videos. Also parodies. When it's called because it's called pirated productions. It's Catico. It's on location cats. It has nothing to do with Sky Cat or whatever the heck that was, or any of those other ones that are not us. So also in the last month after Disneyland, we with Brian's story, and the Duicks visited again last Sunday, confirming the continuation of this season with a few ideas from Brian's story, and a few ideas from them at the last minute. The other stuff from them at the last minute, the Duicks was more or less do something alternate. Yeah, do that anyway. So I did have to go back and look over and reprint those Space-Time Eye stories that I wanted. So I selected the ones that did not have a lot of time travel. I selected the ones that included those 5 or 6 main characters. And yeah, that Gregory guy, Gregory guy, and some of those. He's not even a main character really. He's just kind of there. He's more of a main character later on, in some of the other stuff. But he's sort of there, and and some of the other ones. This is sort of a crossover because the original Space-Time Eye short story collection was several discrete and unrelated short stories and Retracted stories. There's some of these. Some of them became the Pathfinder saga online on Amazon. The Starship Locations Pathfinder Realm saga. Some of this became Space Timeline, books 1 and 2. Some of them became elements of other stuff. Mainly those two. Mainly Pathfinder and this one. This is sort of a spiritual sister to Pathfinder. And you don't need to know what that is. But we did come up with a hilarious title for this instead of just Space Time Eye, the series, because there was several of those. There was Time's Eye by Arthur C. Clarke and Space Time Jury and whatever, and like the Vanguard one, which is brilliant. We just couldn't use it. Advanced Guard, with our brain story. I was meeting the. I'll call it Warped Core. As in core, as in a core of like corpse, pronounced corpse, warp core. warp core, that's, yeah, no one's thought of that. It was like, yeah, now we have, it's ours. All right, well, Starship Locations, warp core. As in corpse, as in the warp corpse. So yeah, each one of these appears to be a long form and short form short story stuck together, like Transtech was doing, like all Transformers Mesh was doing. But it's our stuff, so it's kind of weird going back and going, our stuff, yeah. It has ships with slightly different names than ours, but that's fine because it can be something else. If you look at how it's structured, there appears to be a Tom Cassins. It was a younger Tom Cassins, and a Beth Donald Benton, but no Beth. We didn't want to have Beth Cassins be Sassy Geneva because that, although the character fits as a personality, it didn't make sense if suddenly she was Beth and then she became Clark. So yeah, that kind of messes that up. Also, we have in Pathfinder Lalantos, who we brought into our story after Pathfinder was over. Sort of a Voyager spoof thing with Starcracker people that are leftover rejected Starcracker stories. There's also a version of the stage is set in here, an earlier version of it, which became eventually evolved into the Arbiter. So there's that in there, which is kind of fun. So I thought, why can't this be a follow-up to the Arbiter? Why can't this whole thing be a follow-up to that, to that sector of space, the Key Draconis and Keptera, and the other Rebel Terra and all that? Why can't this whole series take place in that same vicinity? So this is a follow-up to the Arbiter, using elements of the original Arbiter. And why not? And also, it's kind of a follow-up to that mirror universe where they encountered the Elysian lady who had taken over the galaxy. So it's that a little too. It's a little bit of a crossover. There was going to be one of the stories that was rejected. It was one where they crossed over with the Canary Space people and Starcrackers people. This is well, what it ended up doing with some of the Starcrackers people, just including them in the zombie story, and then the three we call the holodeck trilogy, the story on the one hollow planet, and then the story on the A to Z planet Nebula ship, and then the story that was on the other side, the Esteban saga, the story on the Nebula ship, the story on the then the sequel, Sunshine Days, where they're on the other ship that's in orbit of after the Sarpedon one. Then they went on to the Melkoshian one. That was the Brady Bunch episode. And then from there, they went into a third one where they went to the planet Locarno and explored that and kind of finished the Tamara Locarno arc in this timeline, in this altered timeline that's been altered by the Q and Amanda Q. We're in a separate, discrete timeline, which causes this other thing to happen as well. This is kind of that dystopia from Picard, season 2, where they go in that dystopian future. It's kind of that, but it's fun. It's not dark. It's a little dark, but it's not that terribly dark. Vod Duick's character easily could be the character of Nightingale in the story, so it's changed to make it her. And that's why she's not in 2406, because she disappears during this trilogy. but might return. Who knows? Since all of that was done in 2024, early 2025, it didn't make sense to set these in the 2480s like the stories originally were and go from there. It didn't make sense to set them in 2325 because the technology is more advanced. And it would be screwy. It'd be like Discovery. I want to do that. So Warped Core apparently takes place in 2403 up to the end of 2403, and the incident 2404 is in here. It's in this one. It's in this one. So it is in there. January 2404 is in there. She's just before the events of the 2404 season. But it's a slightly different ship, crew, and timeline, so they don't need to actually encounter most of our heroes. Some of our heroes are in this, though, which is interesting. We have a Tom Cassins, an Arlene Benton. We have a Donnie Cassins. He has a son. It would be Eric Cassins in the other version, but no, he's Donnie here. That's fine. There's because it's a slightly different timeline. We have a Crass. She gets Irene Sassy Geneva was kind of Crass anyway. Crass was sort of the archetype for that character later on. Well, Sassy Geneva will just summarize that to Crass. So it's just Crass. Nightingale is going to be Vauduic. Fine. And Alexander Gregory, who is not a main character, but is mentioned a lot because it's a lot from his perspective and from Shad Lawson's perspective. And his last name is changed too to something funny. And the Doctors and the other guys, the Prentons. The Prentons become Bentons, which makes more sense. They're just Bentons. It's distant cousins. It's Distant Destinies meets the other guys. It's the people left over from that generation ship they found later on in 2405. That fits with the timeline. That means that maybe that ship is actually one of these ships from this story that was found adrift, and it's them, and that's fun. The zombie people there too as well. I think that works. It's fine. By changing some of the names, as Brian Story suggested and the other ones suggested, it actually makes it make sense. There's this Sylvie character who was not meant to be a riff on Sylvia, who was one of the exes from Evergreen. It wasn't meant to be her. So I was like, I'm going to change that to a very obvious character, Elijah. So it's Elijah now. Elijah's the bombshell. That makes more sense. It's like, okay, but she's not the bombshell. She's a bombshell. See, they are synths from the synths. Kind of like Picard season 1 with the synths and the admonition and that. It kind of relates. And that's because they're on the same wavelength with us. That's because their story about the admonition and the synth ladies wanting to blow up the world and all that, they stole it from Space Time High. This story goes back to 2019. And the stories themselves go back earlier to some of the earliest Calcat short stories. Because in short story writing class, like this Shad Lawson one with the space computer HAL kind of thing, that goes back to like the 90s. So it's around the same time as Space Vanguard, Starcrackers. Around the same time as Canary Space, a little bit afterward. It has some late 90s, early 2000s sensibilities. It mentions weapons of mass destruction and stuff, which they mentioned in the late 90s during the first Cold War, so they were there. Now you might think, oh, okay, they're the Shad stories, the one where they're on there's like a HAL thing. There's a guy arguing with a HAL type computer. Well, it's a little bit of Arthur C. Clarke in there, but I think he's more of an android than a computer. I think he's actually there with him in the room as an android. That'd make more sense. So it's like, just make him. It's like a Data. There's a Data with him. Data's talking to him. That makes more sense. It's like, oh, there's okay. Jake Tinbad is another robot, which his name was changed to Jake Matthews. So he's the Matthews android. Yeah, so we have the zombie androids and the creatures in there as well, included in there. And Alexander Gregory is now Alexander Roshenko. And he gets to do stuff. Yeah, okay. That makes sense. We don't know what he's up to between the two seasons in 2403. Don't know. Other than there's another one in the other timeline. And because it is kind of a spin-off, discrete timeline, mirror universe type of deal, which Discovery tried to do, but didn't do it right because they didn't ask me. Again, they didn't do the mirror universe right in Discovery. In fact, Section 31 doesn't make any sense because they're because the bad guy that the commander, the space Hitler lady encounters, he would have been 80 or 90 years old. He would have been really crunchy because they pulled her out in the later era, the 2324. He would have been around for like 50 years looking for her. It would have been like at least 30 years later, maybe 30 years later. Would have been a little awkward. Yeah, it's like, how was he even there? Yeah, so that only way that works is it wasn't 2324 and it was an alternate universe, but they said it was 2324, so it was. This one we don't need to convolute it by saying 2483, said it in the other timeline. No, you just need to do the thing that he did with the episode that was called, I believe, the Flow Die episode. The one where they met the Elysian in the other timeline because it got erased by the Elysians. This is a series set in that era. Well, it's not our timeline anyway. It's another 2403 where these characters lived different lives. It's another 2025. That's very interesting. Because that's always fun. That way I can get away with not quite mentioning the other stuff. And the incident links us up a little bit to the other one. You have an Ezra Locarno time traveling through this, and I think you also have a Kestra Riker time traveling through it. So that's cool too. And you kind of have that going on. And it's not that the timeline has been erased. It's that we're just going on an adventure in that other timeline. We have Exile Retracted, which is, I believe, 2 short stories together. Yeah, there's a lot of. And we have Matrix, the guy that was introduced as a different character, and his brother, even though he has sisters, but here he has brothers. And wanted to change a lot of I know what I was trying to do when I wrote the series. I was trying to be very inclusive and including everybody, making it sort of Mako and his intervening family, and they're like Mark's cards, Mako. John Yeager's Mako. Yeah, and then trying to include all that. So I had a lot of Mexican characters. Unfortunately, I made some of the bad guys Mexican characters. They come off as stereotypes. I didn't mean to do that. So I had to fix that. So if they're called Matrix, it doesn't matter. They're not really supposed to be that. They're just called that. They're not supposed to be stereotypes. Yeah, and Ron Sandoval, who is named after Bernie Sandoval, and indirectly after Bernie's brother Ron, that's kind of problematic for who that character turned out to be. Martha's old friend from way back. So we're not going to go there. We're going to rename him Ron Mako. The story. Make him one of the Makos. He's not Mako from Mark's Cards' story. He's Mako's brother. Or possibly nephew. So he's Mako's nephew. Yeah. Different guy. Different dude. But he is at Mako. He's one of the Makos. And because Enterprise stole our name Mako, they literally did for their Mako characters, command Corps guy. It doesn't help that we write that. At least figuratively, that we were involved. We do not discuss tonight in sickbay. Yeah, that kind of thing. Or the sticky tentacles one. It does. Or the one where Trip's caught on the shuttle bay on the planet. Well, we can discuss that one. That Trip and Mayweather on the shuttle. We can discuss that. It was a KS story. Anyway, yeah, but we're not going to. And so we've got So you got some Cassinses. This is fun. Yeah, so. And the Shylum are just Techites. So it's an offshoot of the Techites. The Bakladu are an offshoot of part of the Cardassians or something. And we have characters from the Silverfish Squad thrown in here, but I think they're just thrown in there in name only because even though it is connected in the stories, went through and edited, checked things, and made sure they are connected. But the Silverfish Squad short story, which we wrote, even though that weird Gumby company was like that we went to, that weird that they probably didn't have permission to use like the Gumby materials and the material from that show, and that's why they were interrogating everyone that came in there to work for them to find out whether they were working for the real Gumby people. I was not. But yes, Silverfish Cloud was one of Mark Cards and the short stories, and this is that. It's an expansion of that. It's vicariously by changing a bunch of names to match the Nitro and Freefall Burns and Tipper's Shot, who apparently drinks a lot, and a bunch of names like that. Sylvia as well, the ex Evergreen. One of them. I did not really go out with her though. It was just yeah. Then yeah, I would no. That did not happen. She wanted to. I didn't want to. Yeah, it was more like I'm gonna run away from Sylvia and hear the bombshell lady. And then the other one did. Yeah, and it's better to be Elysian anyway, because then it sets up the Elysian story. Then if you look back at, as well, yes, if you look back at, I know it seems convoluted, but it really isn't. It's easy to follow. If you look back at the future story where they go to visit the Fallen Ones in 2403, in the other Chimera series, they mention an Elysian war that happens 700 years earlier. And a space-time issues involving the Elysians and the space jocks and the space jockeys and stuff. That's this. This began with the zombie thing in this. That's what this is. So that's what's going on. It's the space-time. It's the beginning of the temporal Cold War. So it ties into the. Yeah. It was going to be called Space-Time Core, but Warp Core is funnier. That's so great. But they're going to screw around with the power, the neighborhood, in a few days. So we won't be able to go into production until that is over with, probably on the weekend. So, yeah, even though you're going to see this here on September 30th, this is being recorded. It won't be until the 5th, but this is really, really fun stuff. I was thumbing through this, going like, this is entirely filmable, it's entirely memorable. Go through the whole thing. It is mine. And having a version of a Mako in there is awesome. Yes. So the Tom Cassins that appears in this is in the Zeshad and a Kate Cassins is not the one you've encountered in Distant Cousins necessarily. Or if he is, he's a slightly different guy. He's been altered by the space aliens. I think he kind of acts like him though, so it could be him. And the other ones act kind of like him too, and yeah, Alexander Gregory. That was the first thing I thought of when I was looking through this. So, why can't I just make that Rashenko? If it's Rashenko, it works so much better. It's just another version of Alexander. He's the one that went to Deep Space Nine with a 16 and left, and somehow is like a bitter colonel guy. It's perfect. It works. It's the synergy. Yeah. These are 4 movies, roughly 90 minutes long each, except for part 2, which is a little over 120 minutes. It's 2 hours. It's going to be 2 hours. But yeah, it's 2 hours. A little over 2 hours. Yeah. A little over 2 hours. Because that's the big one. You could only do the first 3, because then you wouldn't get back to Battlefield California, this one. But do them all. Do all 4. Up to the end of the year. The Galcaster making of the beginning of Exile Retracted, the Storm chapter. Here at they're doing Space Time Eye, now known as Warped Core, as in corpse, as in CORPS, corpse, like in the core, space core. It appears to be a weird crossover kind of story. With elements of Vanguard Space or Advanced Guard and elements of Canary Space in it. With our beloved characters from just a few months ago playing different roles. We're not sure why. And that's what makes the teaser very interesting. I was like, okay, what is Alexander and them doing? Why are they playing these different roles? Who are they? Are we seeing a different timeline? What's going on? And actually you won't know until the whole thing is over. It's supposed to be a different timeline. Kind of. It kind of is. They're aware of what they're doing. They're the warped core, but they don't give away the story until we give hints about it throughout there are 4 books, or at least there are 4 movies. There are 2 books. There's 2 books, and we're only going to cover all of book 1 and a little bit of the end of book 2. they had for the final chapter. And that's basically the fourth story, pretty much. No, so that's basically the fourth story. It could just be the first three, but we'll see. The fourth one would close out. You realize what was going on. So yeah, there's actually, I think some of that is actually, yeah, it's tacked on like Canary Space was, but a little like Starcrackers was. But it makes sense because you kind of have to have everybody come to an end, a crescendo. There's enough there for 4 books, almost 4.5, because book 2 is longer, movie 2 is longer. Actually, yeah. So far, this appears to be a tie-in story. It was written to bring us into the series Space Time I, now called this, and the title had to be changed. Title confusion, just like the Vanguard one had to be changed. Title confusion. Canary Space didn't have to be changed. It wasn't. Yeah. So this is another 2403 story. It doesn't appear that they're any older or younger than they were 3 months ago. There's different timeline because different characters went on and their lives changed dramatically. Yeah. One of them. Yeah. One of the main characters went off, got married, so it's like she wouldn't be in the later future stuff. Yeah, I did all that future stuff without realizing, okay, the actors are going to be different from the characters, obviously, that they're kind of representing. And it really shouldn't matter, but it kind of does for what they're doing later. The other stories that take place later were actually done years ago, or at least up to a year ago, and it was like, okay, well, they're not really them. They're really, yeah, they're not here, so it doesn't matter, really. So that's the bottom line, is it doesn't matter who they were based on. They're just there. Their younger siblings have taken over in some cases. But you don't need to know that, because it's not really them, so it doesn't matter. Just the point is that they're doing up to all of the rest of 2403 and the incident of 2404, but it's different. Timeline. The incident is different. The incident is the final chapter of the end of the book. The incident. The Techite Charlie planet is in it at was a Techite planet. They kind of reference vehicles and cars and things like that because the Cars Adventures, that's from the 70s, not the Pixar movies from the 90s. The 70s. That's earlier. A lot of the stuff is very old. It's very old short stories. A lot of them build your own adventure role-playing game stories. The character of Ron Mako was Ron Sandoval, but before he was somebody else, and before he was Clemens at some point. Past he's called Clemens. Ames Clemens. And Ames Bulmer. It was just to be James Bulmer. It was a parody of a bully from 6th grade. And then his name got changed to Ames Bulmer. And then Lower Decks found out about the character and made him Brad Boimler. So, yeah, took it back. Said, no, it's one of ours. We're going to use him. Yeah. Same thing with Mako. We're going to use him because it's a Marked Cards character. It's from there. They put Makos on Enterprise because they knew about us. So they put Makos on Enterprise. So we just take it back. It's ours again. A little bit of Benton and Cassins and stuff. There's a Dr. Benton in that scene. It's a different Benton, different guy, obviously. But you get to see a sort of Robert Picardo acting alongside a sort of William Shatner, that alien. That had to be him again. So he's back. Clear all. Because, yeah, they're... Anyways, so this is Calicat. The Calicats are on the set. Here's 5. It's about an hour before John's appearance on the... October 9th. Production has begun on the film. A couple of days of hiatus due to the flu shots getting to me. The flu shot, not the flu. And also there was production. But yeah, the production has started. We just managed to squeeze out the teaser for this episode. That Storm episode. It's part of Exile Retracted. The characters are in there together. There's kind of a parallel to Lower Decks, which is weird Because I don't think Mike McMahon technically knows who we are. I think he's just been watching our channel. The character of Becky Freeman acts a lot like a character in this story. Mariner and Freeman. I mean, Beckett Mariner. Beckett Mariner and the mother, actually. Beckett Mariner and the mother act a lot like a... I know that it's supposed to be a sister, but it's not. It's, the race swapped. Everything is different. So in this one, Sassy Geneva, who's a character going back to the Cars in the 70s, she is actually the she's going to be Mariner in this version. So it's just Mariner who's been thrown out of time by this whatever's going on. The end of the last story, when we last saw everybody, they were they were thrown out of the zombies and everything were doing stuff, and they had to be out of the time loop because it interferes with the other stuff with Q later on, and the 2404 stories dealing with destinations, and we painted ourselves into a corner. I wrote it so it was in a corner. They couldn't be in the same timeline. So I'm making fun of the whole alternate timeline thing by having it be, oh yeah, it is an alternate timeline. It's still the holographic stories, but more of them. 4 more of them. It's not really hologram, though, in this case. It's more like slightly altered universe things going on. The Space-Time Eye stories, which were based on these role-playing stories from the... I think I've gone over a lot of that before, so we don't need to go over that. But so in the 80s, the 80s and 90s, there was a bunch of short story game stories for Apple II that one of my nephews, David, and I put together to play on the Apple II. It was impossible to win them. Early programming. I'm sure he went further than I did with that. I thought it was too hard to do comic books and things like that. Even later on. So instead of that, when action figures came out, I can just put action figures. Sassy Geneva is probably based on a girl from 5th or 6th grade in Kenya Hunter. It's probably who that is, or Anadoxy. Either one, from back in the day. And from 5th and 6th grade, a long time ago in the 70s. That's who she's based on. So Mike McMahon's character, it's being similar, is a weird coincidence, unless she met, which is possible. Also, there have been other people since that she's loosely based on too. In the 80s, there was a LaTanya Wilson from Pine Hill, who she kind of acts like too. And then later on in the the church years, Evelyn Lax, another person she acts like, but doesn't look like. Her. But yeah, so there's a bunch of other characters that they're kind of loosely based on. Tom the Toy Man is Tom Brookston, basically the character. Been in a bunch of silly other things, pubescent things, stories that were, well, not safe for work, but they're silly. And you're not going to see them. Some of the horror characters, scary characters, show up as different people. I think he has a cameo. Yeah. He was not based on Tom Riker, but in this one he's Tom Riker. So there's the other ones. We've got sort of the Mako guy that I mentioned, Mako. We've got Alexander Rashenko playing Alexander Gregory. That makes sense. In the original, since the games have changed, the short story is quite a bit different. In the original story, well, the last one, which we're not filming, was the Cars Adventures story, the space race, the race for your life kind of thing, space race. Not Charlie Brown, but Hot Wheels Warriors. They were in the 80s. That was probably cribbing from that. So yeah, I was like, oh yeah, there's the Hot Wheels Warriors thing. This is before Pixar even existed. Pixar did not exist yet. This story was like as a company. This was just a goofy thing with cars. It is possible to do something like that, but we're not going to. You could use remote control vehicles and have them do things with a radio. But it's like they're not going to do that. We can't show a Mad Max style space war adventure on the ground on a planet thing. It's not going to work. We know it worked so well in Star Trek Nemesis with the dune buggy chase. which is basically Star Trek acknowledging, yeah, they're ripping off the cars. The Dune buggy chase. Same idea. Same exact idea. In every way. Yeah, they just ripped it. We have various. Well, no, it's not the same exact idea. But Star Trek and sci-fi. Eventually, they were going to do somebody doing a car thing. So these short story game things included a story called originally Clemens Rogue and Clemens Vengeance. There were 2 sequels. They're in this. They're, I believe, in the story that amounts to movie 4, and as well as Battlefield California in movie 4, the finale. But then it took the race one. I'm talking about racing cars, not races. Racing cars. Took that one out. It just ends with the California and the end of the other bombshell lady. That's where it should end, but that would make sense. And Drumlin's final fight with the heroes. Also, you have them having changed things around, because originally Ames Bloomer was Ames Volmer, and he's fighting Clemens, but now it's not him; it's the other guy. It's Dill and Flip and Freefall. It's them fighting him. Different guys entirely in this version. They changed it, and it probably should be changed like that because it would be those two. It looks like Murar is playing Mori, because that made sense. It changed some of the people into the story, so it's like a alternate version earlier of the Starcrackers universe. But it isn't really. It's that the actors, like in Star Trek, you often had actors playing different roles. And also, we know that the story with the characters in it, even though it was 2488 and 89 when we filmed Canary Space, and the other one, it was really 2024, it was last year. And then early 2025, this year. So we knew the characters in the stories really weren't from the distant future 80 years from now, obviously. They were just them, and then brought over into this one. So they didn't need to do all the convoluted, Amanda the Q does all this other stuff. It happened, it's canon. But you didn't need to do that. You could have just said, Q did it, and now they're here. And that's all you need. Q may be testing them here in the larger story, or something similar. The series, we open with the characters on a ship. It's in the story, I think it's supposed to be Endurance. It's an early version of the Endeavor / multi-vector ship thing that appears in the Stages Set story. It was an early short story. It was an early Starcrackers sequel. Graham Cracker Chronicles sequel that predates Starcrackers by a year. And it was going to have this ship and thing in it. And some of that evolved into what became the Arbiter. And then the Arbiter of Capterra. So we're kind of covering stuff we've kind of covered a little bit already. But in a much different way. We have a much different aesthetic. The only reason I called the main villain antagonist, who has the most lines, Mako, originally Sandoval, in this story series, is because I didn't want to call him Mako. So I went back to calling him Mako. It makes more sense. And also referencing Sandoval from one of Martha's friends from decades ago as weird as a villain. That's really weird. Why would I do that? My sister. And actually inadvertently referencing his older brother, who was a little weird. That I didn't mean to. I just stole the name. I didn't mean to do that. Changing it back to Mako. Ron Mako. He meets in the story. He looks a little like he looks a little bit like a Char, except he doesn't have scars from Canary Space. So we got a Starcrackers Canary Space crossover going on. That's what this is. It's a crossover between Vanguard Space and Canary Space. It's been combined into a time warpy sort of thing. Warped core. That's what's going on. Warped core. So that's what you know. And they kind of hint at that. Space Core, the Waymarkers, and all that. They kind of hint at that. That's what's going on. It's another parallel Earth story, another Elseworld story, 4 episodes, and that way we don't need to deal with the timeline where they would run across the Chimera A and kind of the crew of a bridge that would have to be completely rebuilt in order for them to meet. But yeah, the crews would have to be completely repainted in order for them to even meet. We're not going to do that. So in this one, they just sort of pop up in the story. It's 2025 to them. It's not the distant future. They know where they are because Silly Trek operates along for the past 38 years or so within the same timeline as the actual events. So it started in 1988. It's now 2025. So even the Star Trek people could show up, but if they did, they would show up as older Star Trek people. If you've seen it already. You have like Riker or Picard or Crusher show up. They're in their 70s and 80s. They would be in their 70s and 80s. They would show up, and the actors in their 70s or 80s. Voyager a little younger, late 60s. Deep Space Nine, 70s again, 60s and 70s. This is as for the church people or the other people from Pine Hill, we'd be in our 50s. We'd show up. Wesley Crusher, he'd show up in his 50s. Curiously enough, there's a Mariner error, back in Mariner, is that she would be in her 40s. The character she's playing is younger, but she's in her 40s. And that messes up the other timeline if she's actually in Zillion space too. That means that she could not have met Wesley Crusher and could not have met Locarno or Cito as a child. She couldn't have. Unless she was on the Enterprise D and happened to come across them. The character of Beckett Mariner would have been a young teen. Not at the Academy. It would have been a young teen. In that episode where she's with Cito and Paris and them on the planet in 2368, she would have been 12. They wouldn't have been hanging out with her. They would have been like 17, 18, 19. Paris would have been 22. They would have been like, we don't want to hang out with you. What are you doing here? Get out of here, kid. It'd be nuts. It'd be like a bunch of high schoolers hanging out and not at a kid camp with a kid camp. It wouldn't work. It just wouldn't work. That's what gave me the idea for the whole premise of doing this one. Is like, I do kid camp, Sunday school, stuff like that. And they don't hang out together afterward. They don't. I mean, the little fifth and sixth graders are not hanging out with seniors in high school in the mall. It's not gonna happen, or whatever. It doesn't happen. So the idea that they're cadets and the military cadets, even more silly. So no, they wouldn't have met. So Planet Locarno didn't happen. That whole scenario didn't happen. Couldn't have. But yeah, in Silly Trek it could have because it's Silly Trek. Yeah, she wouldn't have known him. She wouldn't have any impact on him. She would have been 11. She would have been like, she wouldn't have had, Cito wouldn't have been an impact to her. Her death wouldn't have really impacted her that much. Character. So no. Wesley Crusher would have been 17 and she would have been 11. Doesn't match up. Doesn't match up at all. So that's not addressed here, but it was addressed in the last episode. So yeah, Mariner does show up here as somebody else. Shows up as one of the other characters. And she shows up as Sassy Geneva, which is what she was originally. And also you have Tindy, who was the other girl. She shows up as somebody else. The Loveman or whatever. Also they cribbed her, but they also kind of cribbed her from the Michael Gemelt stories. They cribbed her from that. And they cribbed Rutherford from the Gemelt story as well. He didn't pitch. They just ripped off his story. They heard about it. They ripped it off. Still didn't pitch. He never pitched for Star Trek 8 years ago. Never did. That was just him coming up to, cease and desist and then making a big deal of it. Never did. So yeah, so we kind of put him back in there. So he gets he shows up as the Chung character later on in this story. Well, not really. It's just we stole the name. It's in there. But it's supposed to be Khaki as well. It's supposed to be the guy that meets up with Evergreen later on. You don't need to know that though, but you could make that assumption. So like the Pixar theory. But it's all a different multiverse, so they should have established that with the Star Trek stuff as well. Strange New Worlds has two characters that ripped off Star Trek Renegades. That's Ortegas and Khan, Lion Khan, number one, maybe three of them, are all from Renegades. Lady Khan is from Renegades. Yeah, hope they're getting credit for that. I don't have a Strange New Worlds character, although they came close with the Trelane rewrite, being a little bit like that. Yes. Yeah. And they came close to Red Letter Media by having Patton Oswalt show up as a Vulcan. That connects him to Red Letter Media. And Lower Decks did a homage to Red Letter Media when they took the hull off the ship to try to escape the planet. Which didn't make sense. They're in space. Why would that be heavy? But oh, silly track. Lower Decks is a silly track. It often confuses people. So this is basically those short story game stories you couldn't win, done as a series. The Clemens Road, Clement Vengeance thing. And I was looking that up, and you might think, oh, he's just ripping off Under Siege 2 and Executive Decision, which came out in 95 and 1995 and 96 respectively, around the same time as the game. Actually, no, it doesn't. They came out later. Those original short stories done in short story writing class at Evergreen that were based on these games were in 1993 and 92, a little bit before those movies. So anything Under Siege 2 ripped us off. But we were just thinking, oh, well, like a Western train, but in space. Which is remarkably similar to later a Firefly episode. Yeah, same thing. But yeah, as well as the Renegade guys on the planet. But I'm sure Joss Whedon wasn't reading our stuff. I'm sure he was just thinking along the same wavelength. As for Seagal's movie, he was ripping us off. He absolutely played the game. He's ripping us off. I happen to know that guy did not fight Bruce Lee. Could not have fought Bruce Lee. Going around saying, Steven Seagal, I fought Bruce Lee when I was young. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. Because it's another case of teenager remembering things wrong. Yes. Bruce Lee passed away when Steven Seagal was 16 years old. So it is unlikely they met, let alone fought each other. And if they did, Bruce Lee wouldn't be a dick and beat up on Steven Seagal as a kid. Messed up. He'd be like, no. He probably met him randomly at a convention or something. And he was like, hi. That's probably it. Arr. Yeah, we've been over that one before. But something I did do when I was in my very early 20s was I was in one of the Ernie Reyes movies. I was in Three Ninjas, and I had a scene with Ernie Reyes Jr. He was a little kid sparring. I was playing a teenager, but I was actually 19 or 20 that movie when we did that with our old academy and their academy. They got together. Yeah, and that was remembered years later at one of those comic book conventions. Yeah, there was a Surf Ninjas fan, and because it's kind of related to the other thing. He's a kind of comic books. He remembered me. That's how it works. And he remembered me. He remembered me, and the Surf Ninjas guy was like, "Oh, I like the Surf Ninjas and the other ninja thing." And the guy in line, and then I met with him, and I met with Ernie Reyes. And I said, "Oh, it's highly dubious. I'm going to get your autograph." And we talked about Jung Swan and his school as well, his Ernie Reyes school and all that Taekwondo class, and never surrender and all that stuff from the movie. And the other guy afterward is standing around. He's like, "Did you actually know Ernie Reyes Jr.?" So, yeah, we worked together on a movie. He's like, "What?" Yeah, Three Ninjas, the first one. That was an extra. Unpaid extra in 2. Wow. Oh, I thought I just liked the movies. I didn't know you were into them. Yeah. Want an autograph? I did. No, he's not. That's okay. I'll give you an autograph. Yeah, I'm just hanging out. Yeah. No, you won't know who I am, though. It'd be like... You weren't Ninja Turtles. You weren't something important. You were in Three Ninjas Part 1. Yeah. Anyway, so... I was not in any Star Treks. I should have been. I was on the set of those out. The experience. But yeah, the idea of the Clemens Vengeance and the California Divided one, that's been rewritten a couple times. It's not about anything current, mind you. It's not politics. It's not space politics, technically. I kind of said, oh, it kind of is, but it kind of isn't. It's not current. These stories were written in the 80s and 90s, technically. The Cars one is the oldest one, going back to, and that one I'm not including. That was in the 70s and 80s. That was earlier. There's also a bunch of other stuff that didn't make it, so we don't need to go over it, including a space-time bicycle and a space-time ship, and made it a ship in the rewrite. Them crashing their vessel on the planet. It's about as far as you get with the space-time stuff. So kind of what's going on is there's like a nuclear. They happen to being chased by a Charlie ship, and a nuke goes off, and it destabilizes, pulls their ship out of orbit. So the nuke goes off. Because they're kind of messed up when they land on the planet. But yeah. So they have a time limit for what they can do in the story. But it's not because of the nuke, really. It's because of the ticking timer joke from earlier. So you have these stories, one right after the other. It's kind of a game. There's no-win scenario, but it's not no-win scenario like the one in Star Trek 2. It's more like a no-win scenario on the ground, and then on other planets. Yeah. So it is the 11th. I'm going to attempt a little night shoot. A little bit. And here we are on page 15. Right, of one of the first short stories ever. This is really, really old. This was written at Evergreen, but it actually goes way back to the games. And one of the first game stories was actually a dream story as well. The Shipment. It was also called Before the Storm. Elements of it appeared in Sneak Storm, The Attack of Robots as well. The Transtech in the 80s. A version of it is in that one when they go out to the field to the Transformer thing with Transformers instead of people. It's a Cal Cat and David Brown story. David Brown story. It's an old one there. Introducing kind of an early version of Tom Cassins as well. All those characters. Tom Toyman supposed to be Cassins, which is weird because then he became Tom Brookston, but he was also Tom Cassins, the character Tom Brookston Cassins. So there's a lot of that. Originally the could have filmed earlier, but wanted to make sure we had all the characters blocked out properly. We knew all the characters for book 1, and might as well do the other 3 while I was at it. So I blocked the characters, make sure they're all the proper action figure for each one, because some of them were mixed up and crossed together. Some of them were odd. Decided that the most of the young cadet characters wouldn't be in this at all, just because they kind of don't fit. There would just be the older ones. What's probably going on is it's a parallel universe, and this planet appears to be the Weirdo-Loo planet, and they appear to be in the edge of Medzak space in this story. The Wraithans and the Krilli and all that. It's an early version of the Lithians and the Terrellians, the Termorelli that are kind of those guys. But in this version, we can't do lizard people, obviously, with these little guys. So there are Orions, which is fine. They're Orion pirates. Kind of fits better anyway. And you notice you've got your one of the guys is Tetmel, or one of them Fundahan there, Tetmel's and Fundahan, and one of them looks like the Cindy action figure, but it's painted green. And then there's another one over there that's Marsha. That to throw them in there instead of it says zombie. I figure to be those two. It's not really them, but it kind of is. So if you want that little clue in there, you go, oh, that's the Cindy one. It's been transformed into a green one. So you have the Nick Storm was one of the first stories. It goes back a long way. It was the original short story. Goes back to On Location magazine at Pine Hill, newsletter magazine fan thing at Pine Hill that I wrote. I had the school magazine basically On Location at Pine Hill. Then there was an On Location at Evergreen, and then San Jose State. There's been lots of there was On Location First Press. There's been several magazines. So I was always doing some kind of journalistic weird short story kind of thing. And it included, there were even early fictional adventures back then, and this was one of them. even before the fictional adventures officially in 1993 and 94. This is like back in the 80s, the earliest version of this. And the idea originally was the teenage Cat goes on a adventure during a storm, like a rainstorm, and meets a girl. That was the original plot of the story. And in this version, it's pre-fall. They're meeting Benton. She's not necessarily the Arlene Benton from Canary Space. It's an alternate universe where there's other Bentons and they've control of something. It appears that they have they're originally Pranton in the story, and there was a bit of a tumult over whether that should be Hertzman or go back to being Benton. And they decided that it should be just Benton, and also making her one of the Amanda Q people, Seska people, makes more sense. It's like maybe this whole season, including the futuristic seasons, she's kind of in the background. She's kind of just messing with things a little bit. So they're distant. So it's like the timeline is being corrected by the influence of these other characters in a sense. She's like the anti-Loom, running around like kind of making things work a little bit better. And it's fine if she's playing her, because it would be confusing if it was the other the Jan Dark character, who actually was the Benton character. It would make more sense if it was a Seska anyway, because that would be like more like her. Arlene Benton was based on not directly any relatives, but she was like a strong female commander character. The Star Trek people were inspired by that and made the Voyager show with Janeway, kind of loosely based on Amanda, and not Amanda, but on this character. Not really, but on the same wavelength. It's like Anyway, so yeah, you have a strong female commander character. Yeah. But yes, so we have a show that's we're up to page 18 apparently of the first book, and a lot of these characters are only in the first 38 minutes, and a lot of them leave, and then a bunch of the peripheral ones take over for the rest of it. And it's interesting that Alex Roshenko is a main character, but not the main character. That's right. And when I checked it over, I was going to say reanalyzed, but reanalyzed, yeah. Found out that book one has the order is different for where the main characters appear. It's not essential in the book to know that, but it was essential to know who needs to be in it and who doesn't. And the part that was stopping production earlier today was that several of these little minor guys, like this Hurricle and Tetmels and Fundahan and Buzzwell are from Canary Space. They're aliens from Canary Space. So that's kind of cool. Yeah. What is that? And yeah, so they're that's fun. Of course, they were cut out of the Canary Space story and included in this one. Yeah, there's a lot of... Yeah, the on-location version of it was different. Yeah, the on-location version was just he meets a girl. That's all it was. The later versions are more like this one. They get a little game. With the game, you have to get to the end. You have to survive the storm, get to the end, and go on the mission. In the game version, in the Apple version. Yeah, you have to survive being in the room with the other characters in the chat, basically. If you don't, then you lose the game. You have to survive. Sort of like a kind of similar to much later those Cube movies and those Saw movies and stuff, but not as bloody and gory. No, definitely more like a kid game. Yeah, they put them in a room and they have to figure things out, and they have to get out, and yeah, they have to survive. Yeah, basically. Sure. There's a bunch of fantasies about that. Will they? Yeah, will they? It's a test, kind of. It's kind of a test, but the whole series is not a test. It's that this one scene, this one chapter, has them dealing with each other in a room. It's kind of like a western too. It's a little bit of a western thing, and it predates the story. Definitely predates Firefly by decades, by a decade and a half roughly. little over a decade. No, maybe 2 decades roughly. Firefly came out in 2005. I'd say the story's original premise was 1985. So yeah, about this, yeah, 85. Right before the storm. Yeah. But yes, doing that again, it's fun. Also, they hint at the cars a couple of times in it. Those car racer guys. We don't see the cars in the story because we can't build them. So they just talk about them. And yeah, and Toyman being a Picard is fine. Maybe it's the 47-year-old Picard from earlier, for season 1, in '87 or so. Yeah, it's young Picard. But I always pictured Cassins as being someone else. Told later on that when the 2007 version of PlanetCom came out, that my half-brother, came onto the set when I was doing that. That was a good imitation of David there. That was all like, I couldn't figure out what Cassins was. That was one of our characters with Cassins. He was, that was a teacher at Valley Christian. Oh, is that who that was? You just used it. Which, okay, yeah. I wasn't at Valley Christian. I was behind him. I put Steve Clark into that story. So we put that Steve Clark from Pine Hill, but he put Tom Cassins. That's what he was. Haven't seen a David story in a long time, but yeah, it's kind of fun looking back on that. They're going like, oh, yeah, it's the Storm story. They're gonna all be in the room together, and they're gonna like keep from killing each other. But yeah, so that's the game. Those build your own adventure games for the Apple II were made with it. Were the extent of our game developing powers at the time. There have been better ones since then. Other people have done something similar, and those are fun. Yeah, the infamous Clement's Vengeance, which was later a bunch of other stuff. It is one of the episodes. It's in book 4, movie 4 here. That one was fun because you couldn't win. They didn't know it, but it was developed so you couldn't win. There was literally no good options. It was not possible. You couldn't win. Yeah. It was one of those. Yes. Vine Sauce had mentioned there were games like that back in the day. Oh, yeah, they're on his website. I was like, oh, there definitely were. Yeah, you couldn't win. It was impossible. Didn't. And you could reprogram so you could at least end the game, but you couldn't win. But yeah, yeah, their names are funny. Bunswell, Tedman. I always come up with alien. I was always good with alien names, bizarre alien names. And Mark's Cards was too. So good at coming up with alien names, in fact, that Next Generation used one of them for 4 different alien races, the Turellians. And he thought of that name in '86 before the show even started. The Turellians were these alligator guys. The Turellians. The Wraithen Turellians. The Turellians. Yeah, and it's like they had it on Next Generation in Season 1, Episode 3. And then again, Season 3, it was a different race entirely. Then there was a 4-armed race. It was playing the piano lady. There was a lizard one. They never quite got it right. I think they got it right on Deep Space Nine, basically later on. And there's Tellurians as well. But yeah, they were grabbing our stuff too. I'm kind of surprised that they didn't come up with just naming a crewman Stephen Clark, just to do it. They didn't. There was a Henderson though. There was a Henderson. There was a Curran. Well, it's Curland. It's close enough. And there was a temperature. But yes. But yeah, Mariner couldn't have known our class, that Starfleet Academy, at all. She would have been a kid. Yeah, stupid. She couldn't have known. She couldn't have known Wesley Crusher. She would have known him, but he'd be like, "Oh, she's that little kid that comes into 10 Forward and like orders chocolate sundaes and stuff." Like, we're gonna hang out with her. Yeah, she's annoying. Ah, yeah. It's like, yeah. Anyways, I don't think they had a youth group in space on the ship. Um, yeah, I figured this story is well, it's not more adult. It's just that the themes are. I mean, this story was written by a 15-year-old originally. This episode was really old. I'm 15-year-old me. And my nephew David, the oldest nephew, years ago. The rewrites more Mark's cards, but yeah, it's gone. But yeah, it's kind of like, oh, this has been. This. Yeah, it's kind of fun going back there and doing that. And the last one would have been the Cars Adventure, but I decided that I would leave that out and not add that to the end of the final book. It's already long enough as it is, and it wouldn't make sense anyway. Because how the heck would we animate that? It would just be, even if you could, and you can't, having a bunch of guys in the cockpits of like fast-moving vehicles done with action figures needs to be sparing because you're only showing a little bit of their floating heads in the shot, and then you cut back to a little toy rolling across the ground. It's not going to look good, so we're just not going to do that. I'm still not sure how we're going to do the mech scene, except we'll probably just use some of my Transformers for the mech. Some interesting, fun parallels with the character in the T.L. Aaron story, but a similar popular detective, but that's because he was familiar with the games from Old Transformers Mush years ago, not realizing Adamacon is Calicat, and so his characters, synergy, right back to him again. Achman and the lady and some other guys. Let's go. So this is Calicats, the Calicatster on the set of the Space Warped Core stories, briefly to add making of or changes or whatnot to the script. You have some characters that, of course, you won't notice when you see the movie, but the choice to make some of them one figure or the other, it doesn't make sense. There was a character called Ellen Lawson, or Ellen Ginoli. Just make her the Kate Hertzman figure. Just say it's her, because that makes sense. Just do that. And the other one that's a Hertzman isn't, in the script it said to her, but no, it's been changed. Billy Ice Woman Benton is actually one of the Cedo Seska figures instead, which makes more sense. Even though the Kate Terror, the actual person that Kate Terror is loosely based on, would be an excellent as that character, too old, and it can't be your daughter because that would be weird. So it's not; they're not related. So by making it an earlier version of it had it be, we'll just say Abby Hertzman. No, it can't be Abby Hertzman. It makes no sense. So that character is not her. So then later on, there's no relation to the other lady because there shouldn't be. They're not related. Forces them to be related, and they're not. They're completely different, and it would be confusing. You have 2/3 of a story left of book one. I think the making of for each one of these. Well, I guess you could put all the making ofs together, but I guess that's confusing. So no, book one has its own making of and all that. It is getting down to the wire on the limit on the story. So if we want to release book one by Halloween, okay, put everything together as a package. Put it together. I don't know how much filming can be done today regarding the next few pages, but the premise, the MacGuffin of the story is they have dimensional shift technology, similar to some Next Generation episodes, similar to the show Sliders. They have dimensional shift technology. That this is a sort of a parallel timeline in the multiverse, and by having a character who previously had played Rumbly's sister as this Benton character, this other Benton character. It's not the same Arlene Benton as in Canary Space. It's a different lady. It's a different Arlene Benton. It doesn't. It's just the name. Just you chose the name. You're kind of implying that this is probably all the Rumblies and the Qs messing with even this timeline, this season, in some way, behind the scenes. They've created this other space contact, this other group, this Waymarker and the core ministry and all that. Sounds a little bit religious, quasi-religious. I think this season you're kind of exploring, or this half the season, you're kind of exploring the Valley Religious people. That's what this is, probably, and the jocks of Valley Religious and that kind of thing, and the space thing. A little bit of, it's not so much TMS as it's that. Although there's a little TMS, Marshall Sportius, a little bit of that, but it's not. It's not really canon. It's just, yeah, the story's canon, but it's not really. You don't need to know what's going on. It's a sort of our version of what would have been cool if they'd done Picard season 2 correctly and showed that other universe where things were off. Yeah, that's what this would have looked like. They could be on a Weirdoloon planet from the Weirdoloons from Silly Trek from season 1, but that would be very obscure. But the Weirdoloons were basically a spoof of the Malkotians anyway, so we already went there. We've been to Malkotia, so it's not them directly. Also, by making some of the aliens, making some of the aliens clearly the troop from last 2 episodes, kind of like saying, "Oh, are they actually the troop? It's just pretending to be other people." Yes and no, because it's a time warp thing. Another cool idea I thought of when the boss from the cast, the other cast, church cast, showed up at the coffee shop. I was thinking she was there. I was thinking it would be funny if that maybe what's going on is when the Loom go after a universe and try to eat it, destroy it, suck everyone into it, including the zombies. It doesn't actually destroy them, because nothing in the universe can be destroyed unless it's like a black hole. So what's going on is the Loom pulled them into another dimension that's like ours, but not exactly. All more like Sliders, but also a little bit like that early edition. Also a little bit like the sci-fi show, Fringe, a little like Fringe, which was kind of ripping off Sliders. But yeah, a little like Fringe. So yeah, that is kind of cool. Also, yeah, you're only about 40 minutes in, so roughly one episode of Next Generation back in the day, and you're already saying, okay, they're on another planet. Why do they have to be on another planet? Same planet. Just say it's the planet they were on the first part, because yeah, it's a 90-minute movie. They're on one planet. Yeah, so it's not a different planet, and the Exile ship is just another ship that was knocked out of orbit. It's a whole planet. Yeah. Another ship was knocked out of orbit. They got to deal with this other ship in the second half. Slightly different crew, but some of them are similar crew. So that kind of works. It's okay, some of them went over to this other ship. And it doesn't matter that Brashenko and several of the main characters are just suddenly not in the story anymore, because of the time thing that's happening, time-space thing. But also because people walk in and out of a story, any story. You rarely have bit players and minor players, because you have an ensemble here. You rarely have them, through the whole thing, through line with all of them, through the whole thing. The idea of Alexander not being the through line and being just, I'm here, but I've gone off to go figure out what happened to the alien that disappeared. And we follow not him, but the alien that disappeared. Which is like, oh, okay. So it connects the other story. But yeah, it disappeared. and she has the shapeshifter ability to become the younger alien on the ship. It's sort of a Rand figure. I think it was the McKinley character is what it is. I don't know if it's in the credits. We put the credits together already, but yeah, that doesn't matter because really, as we've said many times before, there is no major cast really. All the credits are just Cal Cat using different names and voices. There's no one being paid. It's all voluntary. It's not AI. Now the newer program does have AI abilities, but we're not using any of them to make an AI out of it because that would be dumb. So, yeah, I don't think there's time to do any filming right now, but maybe a night shoot a little bit. But they're yeah. So you have the same planet, different ship, different explosion affected other ships. So, space war. Yeah, then we know. I read the second half. I went through the second half, the second 2/3. Next up, 60 minutes. It's kind of a space war kind of thing going on, but you have really basically operational theater in the story of each. You have like a decimated pole ship like ship. Got the Matrix in there. Got those guys. And they're being played by different people this time around because it's not really that guy. It's just the script says the Matrix guy shows up. It's not really him. It's more like it's his siblings. It's his, yeah, he has siblings, the girls. But in this, they're guys. Yeah, they're not supposed to be them. It's just the name of the Chick-fil-A guy wanted to be in it. But yeah, we couldn't use his real name. And it's not really him anyway, because it's action figures. But yeah, we've chosen different versions of facets of the O'Brien figure, Kiriyoshi O'Brien figure, two different timelines, acting as brothers, quote unquote. So yeah, I don't really need to go over too much about what that's about. Except also, the episode starts out with Seth Steele Jones being our main character in this story, as played by the Henderson character. So is it Henderson? Is it actually Henderson, or is it Seth Steele Jones? Now, in the story, it's Seth Steele Jones. He's his alias Seth Steele Jones in the story. It's not supposed to be Jason Henderson. It just looks like it. That way, you can get away with all kinds of things. I can get away with having that other lady show up too, as Ellen Giannoli, or Ellen. I think in the script it says Ellen Giannoli. It probably should say. It probably should be one of the Bentons again. But it is going to be the Hertzman action figure, Kate Ter Hertzman action figure, playing this Admiral lady that shows up. Not sure what the last name really is. If it's still the one name or the other, doesn't matter. It's all Calicat anyway. So, but yeah, this episode coming up is a rewrite of the Kim Tasan saga, which goes back to Planet Com. One of the rejected stories. It's that one. It's the originally it was Rana and her friend going on an adventure. The friend guy getting revived from the ship, and then the other guy turning on the ship and escaping. There's different roles for different characters from the previous episode, but it shouldn't be a problem. They seem to work out. Don't need to worry about it. It's classified. And yeah, we're wondering where these guys went. It's probably several weeks after the other story, so they could have went on and done something else. Yeah. So, but yeah, the premise is to tell this as sort of a 4-movie miniseries. You can put it as a miniseries, but it's 4 90-minute movies roughly. So there's a miniseries. It's Space-Time I, and we're not doing. We are going to do some of book 2, like we did Canary Space, and a little bit of Starcrackers, like Space Vanguards. And we're not going to cover any of the time travel stuff, as Mark's cards also agreed. No time travel stuff, just their dimensional travel. They have warp drive. They have warp drive and dimensional travel, and they can do that. But if you change the universe completely, it's bafflingly different. I think the first book has the most characters, and all the other books have a little less. They have an even ensemble of characters, even ensemble of dialogue, alien names that are fun. There are Calicat alien names. The Kim Tucson saga was basically about this crashed mothership, basically. Big mothership gets taken over by the crazy... commander goes crazy. Mothership gets taken over. The younger officer gets away and goes to a planet. This planet, well, they're planning a space war against the bad guys, and in the story. And basically, the second half, they're planning the space war. They meet up with the general. They're going to go on the space war, and then they attack the Queen's planet. Kind of a similar premise to Starship Troopers and Ender's Game, in the sense that they're like supposed to be bugs originally, but because they're now Orions and Techites and Temeralians, kind of that, pseudo Temeralians. Yeah, it's different, and it had nothing to do with that. And no, we're not ripping off either of those shows. It's just kind of an homage. I would say this story is less screwed up than Ender's Game. But yeah, there doesn't seem to be much representation for LGBTQ in there. But if the script didn't call for it, it didn't happen either way. So it just didn't. It doesn't. It's not a political story about anything from our time. It was originally a adventure in the Planetcom series, I believe the Distant Planets series, from the 90s. It was one of the short stories. It was an interesting short story about a sort of a pseudo coming of age of a guy that has a conundrum, doesn't remember who he is. He's got to remember who he is to get back to the other thing. He's got a friend who's an alien, turns out to be like a shapeshifter, kind of thing. It's a very proto Calicat story, very old. Yeah, if anything, it'd be linked up to the 90s, and there's nobody. Who would that have been? The mid-90s would have been Clinton would have been president. That would have made no sense. This had no connection to that whatsoever. But yeah, so there's that. There's that. The 90s. There's some rewritten elements, but mainly it's that story. It was rejected from the Canary Space timeline because it was problematic originally. It had undertones that were weird. It had, although the character that came out of it was Rana Cervantes, a character who was fun, going on adventures as a rogue. But yeah, and there was Nathan Char and all that other stuff, and he's not really Nathan Char anymore. She's not really Rana Cervantes anymore. Now she's Sassy Geneva, who's been changed to another character. I was going to say Ice Woman, but no, she's the other girl. It's the other. Got to keep track of all those names. Oh, I wrote them down so I can keep track of them. But it's not. It's the other one. Yeah. It's not the Ice Woman one. It's the other one. It's the Sassy Geneva Crass archetype. Crass becoming an archetype. And the reason it's similar is because Crass is basically an homage to that character that was this other character from the games as well. It wasn't the games. Kim Tucson Saga was a game. It was a build your own adventure story too, just like all the other ones. And this is one of the earliest versions of it. It doesn't have Char even. It has a guy that kind of acts like him. Been changed to the character of Mako, but it kind of acts like him. The other ones are, it's definitely Mako elements in it. But he's not a main character in it yet. He's a main character in the other stories, but not yet. It's the your titular sort of second 2/3 of a 90-minute story. It doesn't need any fixing really. It seems to be all right. You have in what it's doing. In the case of the story, same planet. Make it the same planet. It's way easier. It's the planet they landed on in the first story. Because suddenly, we're going to go to another. No, we don't need to do that. It's just it's the same planet. And you have, Okay, making of. I know in the script calls for them to be, in this episode, going to a planet New Barbados. Because I thought that was cool when I was like 16. When I wrote the early version of this. And then still cool when I was 20-something. but it doesn't make sense to call the planet New Barbados. Yeah. Let's tie this into the other timeline thing that they're in, making this planet the same planet as the previous story. It's still the planet they were at in the previous story. So that planet was called New Terra, or Capterra. No, that's where they are. Hedra, Cronus, and Capterra. So let's do that. Okay, making of. Note that in the story, making of, they mentioned a guy named Mark Ted Benton, and then Theodore Benton. And I think it's an error. I think it's meant to be Ted Benton and not Mark anything. But if it is Mark Drumlin, tied into the other story, I don't know if you want to do that, though, necessarily. I think it works if it's Ted Benton. It's more punchy. The kid is Benton's son, I guess. The kid is the son. He's over there. He's not really confined. Anyway, so yeah, you've got a... Yeah, so let's just... Okay, making of... what? Making of. We have a... we're going to go back a little bit to make this them on the shuttle, because it's just more dynamic and interesting. So they're on the shuttle, and he's making a speech. So that's what we're going to do. And yeah. Okay, making of, going on to the next scene, but still filming this wall. The character of Parks, who appears later, it makes no sense that it's him. I think it's a screw up, and it should just be the other Matrix saying that, because he's also a space doctor. So the other guy, and then the two Bentons, and it's not supposed to be the same Bug Doctor guy from the finale. That's one of these guys, Bug Doctor from the finale. It's probably the older one. Yeah, so that screws that up if we do that right there. So it's someone else, and then we have, because it kind of has to be, because it can't be him, and it's really just kind of a gag anyway. It's just like the late 80s, early 90s era. Oh, it's Dr. McCoy shows up and then heals them, or in this case, Dr. Crusher, I guess. That doesn't. It can be one of these guys, or it can be the other guy, but it can't be Parks. That's the idea. It's got to be just some other healer on the ship. And it'd be somebody that's on the ship already, so it couldn't be either of these two guys. See, that's the idea. It can't be. Yeah, the alien guy over here, the alien younger like cousin of the other Benton guy that shows up. He's not really supposed to be his son. He's his cousin. He shows up, or nephew possibly. I don't know if he's that close to it. If he's the one that fixes the wound, that makes no sense. And if he does it, then it contradicts the other scene. So I think what's going on is there's sort of like a kind of a space rebellion starts to happen, and the captain runs off. And mind you, the Seth Jones character is the Henderson action figure, but he's playing Seth Jones, so it's not actually Henderson. Yeah, but I think you would already get that. So yeah. So yeah, it is an historic irony that this character would be in this pattern. And thinking about this other movie that we had a bit part in, where there was a guy trying to punch a guy in the face, and he kept falling forward, and the director, after like several takes, almost 20 takes, was like, I don't understand why the scene isn't working, and there was fake blood everywhere because he kept putting fake blood on him. And he goes like, Snatch and Dwarma, that was the movie. No One Sleeps. That thriller movie, yeah. In 2000 something. Anyway, so yeah, he kept knocking him in the face, knocking him forward. Now, if he'd been hitting him in the back of the head, then it would have been accurate for him to fall forward, because physics, because that's a thing. Yeah. So, but he wouldn't have fallen forward and then backward again. He would be forward like that. So yeah. There's making of. There's a lot of extra stuff about them going to the bridge and then escaping the dark, leaving the room. They mention a thing on the bridge, someone detaching a section, but they're already there. They then have a tactical guy who in the next scene when they're departing is supposed to be Steve Hamilton as a character, but he can't be there. Why is he there? I think what happened there, again, is another character. They just changed. There's two, it's not him. It's someone else. It's not him. Just one of these other guys. And if their other ship is already there, they already can rescue them. So you're, this is more punchy that way. And there's explosions, look at the cruiser, Donnie, so let's try to do something with that. Okay, making of, I've got a weird thing here. If you're cutting back to the general saying, I'm going to rescue the pods that escaped from the destruction of the ship, and then they go down to the ice planet, well, it's sort of cold planet. It's weird that they jump immediately back to the general saying, save them, go and rescue them. That it's a little redundant. It would work if there was more to that scene, but that's literally a paragraph. So probably, it doesn't really work to have them doing that. It's kind of one of those moments that's kind of redundant. So you probably don't want to do that. Yeah. Of that other footage, there's some other footage of on the planet, and I didn't make the back of the set clear enough and where they were clear enough. I'm gonna reshoot that, so you won't see the earlier version, and it's not really doesn't need to be in the bloopers or anything. It's the background screwed up. So I'm gonna reshoot that. So here is on the planet, and I'm gonna add a little bit of exposition for him so that it's on the planet. Okay, this is a scene pickup of the Tuvok character here, saying a line. This is making of for the scene pickup, and going to it now, film it. Now, this is a problem of this story's general structure. Note, I don't want them switching from 2 minutes in that room to immediately on the bridge, and they're going over to this other thing now. No, have all of this happen in the briefing room. Yeah, so I'm going to change something in here. So we know they're on their way to the planet Houdini, which is weird because the cat didn't exist yet. Well, maybe it was added there as a joke in the story, but nobody's going to name a planet that. But edit their making of. Note that they're not going to be on the bridge when the lady passes out. That makes no sense that they would jump to the bridge for 2 minutes to jump back from the bridge and then say, okay, this other thing's happening. They're not on the bridge at all. They're right here. Yeah. Yes, making of a secondary note here as I was looking this over. The reason you don't show the bridge right here is because there are literally 2 people on the bridge. And it's a scene jump that doesn't need to happen. That's why you don't show the bridge here. It's weird and awkward to do that. Because then just don't show it at all. Yeah. Okay, making of again. The Yvonne Kerr character is playing a part almost identical to June Nightingale or the other character, the other one. So I'm gonna, and she's just in the one story. She's not anyone else, and she's just in the one story. Let's give that role to the Nightingale character / what's her name? Here. Let's do that. Yeah, because then it makes sense. Then it's like, oh, okay, she's the other, yeah. That makes sense. It's stupid. It's just not stupider. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give it to her. I'm going to have Benton talking to her. Original Elijah. And then, yeah, so, yeah. This is, a scene jump. It is a scene jump like the other one. But yeah, you have to, she's, Kerr should be just a, that makes more sense. We know she's there, so, yeah. Okay, making of. I think I get what you're doing here. It's kind of a next generation idea. They're going to zap her and then she's going to recover. And then they mention, oh, we fixed her, don't worry about it. But then that's kind of too quick. I think a more punchy alteration to that line should be go get a move on to him. Yeah, because they already mentioned the decon chamber. So they send him away to get so that he can be in the next scene elsewhere. And the doctors are working on the operation. That's how that would work, even in the future. And they basically tell him to leave, which they kind of did already. I just want to cement that a little better. Because they reverse the like they literally in the script, they literally say we fixed her right here, between here and here, go to the chamber and get a test. We literally fix her a minute later. That's just kind of terrible script writing. But yeah, it was one of the earliest stories. So yeah, even it was based on an '80s story, and that was just not corrected. Never thought we had to do a movie out of this, and then we're ever going to do a movie out of it. And that's one of the reasons it was rejected from Canary Space. But yeah, that they it works if the scene ends with him saying, "Okay, go, you and the other doctor leave," because this guy isn't necessarily the Dave Pranton character. Because they say in the story that he's Parks as well, the bug doctor from later on. And if he is, he literally gets killed on the next page when she escapes and kills everybody. So that would be bad. That doesn't make sense. So he is just another version of this Pranton character. He's just another EMH, basically. So think of it in Voyager terms. He's one of the holographic doctors. So he's a holographic doctor. He's not supposed to be Benton. And that's not clear in the story, but that's what's going on. So if you make that clear in the story, that they're holographic medical theater, or at least synth medical theater, doing an operation, So I'm going to fix that so that he is told to leave the hospital area altogether, go in the quarantine area. And, well, they work on her. Because then they go on the hearing. So I'm going to convey that, fellows. So... Irene Krause. Making of the other guy is not in the rest of the story apparently, just him. So yeah, he's gonna go on the mission, and Irene shows up to help them, and it's a little awkward. And then they go to a shuttle for a page and a half, 2 pages, and then they're on a planet. No, on a planet. So we return to what this set, the planet. All right. So we're on page 75 near the bottom. I think what I want to do here is say that this other one's going to go on the mission that he's going to stay. So I want to finish up these two, because they're not in the scene together anymore. Unless he shows up again. Okay, making of. Let it be known that Sassy Geneva, the original character, is described two different ways. In this story, they describe her as being a blonde with streaks in her hair. In the story, originally, the earlier version was a blonde Sassy. So she looks like the Elijah character. She's basically Miss Henderson from Drunk Swan. In this version, however, she's been changed into the other character. But that's not important here, really, because we don't know who those people are. But it is bizarre that she's been entirely race swapped into this other one. And it doesn't matter because she's not... this is another version, it's another timeline, everything else. But it is interesting to note that the original, in the script, it was originally a blonde Jung Swan student. And here it is, a black lady. Anyway, so here we go. Making of, the gardeners there's gardeners out there. So making of, and did they stop? No. So they're getting worse, and we're going to stop. But there's making of, and we got up to page 79, and I filmed the scene with the aliens shuttlecraft crew a little out of order because it fit better out of order. So I filmed it so that they get in the shuttle and they're talking with the screens on, and then they see the ship, and then they see the other one. As opposed to in the story originally, it just said, oh, they see these things and the memory thing happens, and then they see the shuttle. It's a little. So I said, what do I film 78 first and then go back to 77? That's kind of what I did. That is way too loud in here, and it's on this side and the other side. It's a Friday. It's usually what happens. So we're going to stop for the time being, and we're getting through this, though. It's going to happen. Don't need to rush it. Yeah, we're getting through this. It is. We filmed 10 minutes of it today, maybe a little over 10 minutes. Okay, making of. I am going to do I'm going to start at the top of this page just to make sure that it's well, not quite at the top of the page, to make sure that I have all of it. I'll start at the top. I'll start at the top with Carlos about something as big as the ship should be easy to spot. Because you could hear the log guy. I thought to comment on what's going on here. In the script, it called for a weird, like trial by force, sort of martial arts, like Karate Kid type of derivative scene. Original script had them. One of them nearly bonk one in the nose, like in one of the Karate Kid movies, and then kick one of them, and then like by force somehow tell the bad guys to stop fighting them. And it's just like, oh, I get that Kim Chisan's saga was a Jung Swan episode originally for Canary Space, but when it was Planetcom, I think it was Distant Planets. It was part of Distant Planets, but doesn't work here. So it kind of doesn't make sense that they're equating, okay, they're going to stop violence with violence. That isn't really what a martial artist would do anyway. That's kind of silly. But so instead, she fires her blaster. Like a cowboy thing going on. Makes a little more sense that they're okay, they fired a blaster. They're going to fight. That's what's going on. So, as this is making of, the regeneration thing, the clone thing, the other thing, I think it's punchier if this is where the Kimmy Elijah shows up. Instead of it being, it's sort of the Rand Miss Summer Elijah showing up. It should be the Kimmy one. She should show up with the other one. So they're not really twins. It's not really a twin clone thing. It's not sort of that Picard with the commander guy thing at all. It's actually, it's another Elijah. That makes more sense. So it's not a clone thing. It's a soul has been downloaded to the other alien, basically, or the clones, but they're not clones really. They're other robots that have their download going on, like the Doctor guy. Yeah, so they have so it's not cloning. It's that they have two beings in the universe, two androids, and one of them just downloads the copy to the other android, knows where the other android is. That makes more sense. Yeah. So there's the gag is that's the one from the last episode, the third page 30 or so, appearing on this planet with the other one. And there's other ones. She's like a queen, like a Borg queen, and she's just a younger copy of the idea of the Borg queen. So she's not a copy. She's just another queen because it's not really a clone thing. It's really more like a download to another queen. Yeah, makes more sense. It says yeah. Yeah, so yeah, there's also it's kind of weird that the ship scene ends so suddenly right here, but that's kind of what happens. Surrender to you at all. Okay, so yeah, I guess it just I suppose the queen and the other guy could show up right here, maybe. So making of again, I want to finish this. This is literally like I think this chapter is a page away from ending, so I want to end this page. A page and a half away from ending. So this chapter. Let's finish this for the evening. They shouldn't move the scene to another room. They should just contact the general on the screen. So that's what I'm going to do. That is the end of chapter 9, and I think there are 2 left. There may just be 1, but I think there's 2. I think there's a 9 and 10. And it's a little bit like one of the earlier versions of Canary Space because there's a little bit of char in there originally. Some other people, but yeah. So that's going to be it's different in this version, and because the other version wasn't done. So there's that's the end of this for the evening, and we are done. Full day filming, and 15 minutes of tape left, and so that doesn't matter when you watch this, but yeah, we put the people on screen and stuff. The Elysians. So it's she's the character from the other story that beamed over. So it's not that she's a clone. It's that they're all TMS synth people, and they have the power to mind link, like they have key energy. That's what's going on. Yeah. That's what's going on. They have Cillian powers. So that's what's going on. Which doesn't make sense anywhere other than in Silly Trek. So yeah, this story is very much Silly Trek. It works as a Silly Trek because they could do that. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think these two actually have Q powers. I don't think they have Cillian powers. They're villains, so villains usually don't. So they're just sort of there. This was 87. And there's 107 pages, so there's 20 left. But yeah, that's 10 minutes roughly of footage. And yeah, I'm gonna end it here for the evening. And yeah, and then they do sort of a thing with the programs and the ship. The mystery is the ship that crashed. And it's a good little short story as on its own. It didn't really, yeah. Also, adding to the making of at the end of this day of filming on the 16th, I think. That's the day. I try to get this whole story, this one episode. I'm going to complete it, put it together, put it all to put out before Halloween, and that's definitely possible. And get it all done, and it comes out, and then get to see the rest. The end of this story had more of the other. Originally, the Admiral lady was going to show up too, and she was going to talk to him on the screen. But I thought but also Kerr's there, and Kerr was changed to the Duick character, and it makes more sense that it's actually the Duick character. And it gives the Duick character a little bit more to do. So, also there are some other alien names that switched around. The idea, yes, is that the zombie Luxana here. So the zombie Luxana, she's meant to be Kimmy, or a version of Kimmy. She's a Clamasta. She decided to clone herself through space and time. So she's also the Queen Mother in the Canary Space story. And there's a bunch of other people, but yeah, it's that character. So yeah, she's apparently messing with space time as well. Probably gave him the technology. So the story gives hints that it's in the same parallel to some events of Canary Space, but also Space Vanguards. It's a go between kind of thing. It's the horror planet. It's the Capterra planet type of thing. More so than Key Draconis. So we Capterra. I think they go to Capterra at one point. But the planet they're on is not the Gunzati planet, and it's not the Elven planet. It's what's changed. It's not Mystica either. It was changed to being just that they're on New Terra, because that's just easier to follow. So there's New Terra. Is where they are. And that's where they are in the fourth one, too. Yeah, it's just easier to follow that if they're on one planet with fleets in orbit and stuff. And not going all over the place, which you couldn't do in a Star Trek story so much, but you can do it in this one because it's not really Star Trek. It's a fan film. Some people were discussing the legacy fan films and all that. Some of the creators want to do a thing. They're not necessarily. They're not going to do that. They were just talking about it. And they were like, yeah. So they were on about that, but they referenced our fan stuff. So that's kind of cool. They were like, yeah, some of the fan stuff. It's interesting. Yeah, so, I think they're referencing. Yeah, so there is a Starship legacy that's known to the what culture people. They're like, yeah, there's somebody's doing a Star Trek legacy with action figures. yeah, I did. Yeah, it did a couple seasons of it, but it was 2 other stories before. Anyways, so that is it for the evening, I think. Yeah, we've done more than enough. And I think we can end for the evening. And yeah, so yeah, finish the rest of this later when there's time to do that. And we're getting close to the end of this. There's a scene on a rogue planet in the next one, but it's not really a rogue planet like it's floating around in space on its own. Like, it's a planet with rogue people. There's a lot of like literal like goofy stuff going on in here, because the Kim Chasan story is based on an earlier story that was written when I was a teenager. So it's like those Cameron movies with the Avatar. Allegedly were written when he was like a teenager. I don't think they were. I think he just misremembered them. But he was just watching episodes of Thundercats and stuff like that, and just thinking, that'd be cool. Yeah. Mine are more original than that. Although there are times when they're not, but in this case they are. The prison ship stuff and the prison ships, the prisoners. That's actually the Tim Cantrell elements in there. But not enough of it to say he did it. I think it's just inspired by it, more so than the Starcracker story. This is exclusively the Cal Cat story. It's a little bit of I think it's slightly after the David years. That older nephew, David, the first nephew. So it's slightly after that. It's like the early, the Kim Chasan version. That's this one with the planet is the 1990s, in which I was over 20. So it's a little different. So it's clearly in a mixture of the two. It has got some of the Jumping Swan elements in there. Originally, they were all clones, and they were like doubles of each other and doppelgangers. And that's why the T.L. Ahrens Robotech Sentinels thing, they had cloned doppelgangers in that too. And I was like, okay, it's synergy. It's very similar to this. This is a weird kind of a cousin to that. I'm not sure how we're going to do the Walker ship that shows up there. The walking. I'm probably going to use a transformer for that scene. Filmed it for that scene. Yeah. So I wouldn't worry about it yet. The shuttle footage, whatever, later on. And there's a lot of shuttles because I built a shuttle set, so shuttles in the story. But also it was in the script. And there was a lot of transition wipes and scenes that were weird because they were instantly switched back and forth, and it was like, what am I doing? As a comic book, it would make sense, or in a game, it would make sense. Like it's a build your own adventure story. That's what it came from, the original story, before it was even a Junk Swan story. Yeah. The original story was just like an adventure in a prison ship and that kind of thing, and there was like a governmental body that was in control. And they're basically giving this guy orders, and he's going on these weird adventures. And originally, there was even there was an accosting scene that's mentioned there that wasn't filmed, of course. There was another scene too where the hero guy was almost castrated by the bad guys. They had to rescue him from the planet. But in this version, it's just they shoot each other and stuff, and they don't get captured nearly castrated. Because yeah, that's the 80s version. Because if you played the Build Your Own Adventure version, there were several different versions, and it's long gone. It doesn't exist anymore. It was Apple II, didn't even make it to Mac. The original Build Your Own Adventure, the reason they had abrupt scene ends is because usually that's where your character died. So you'd be like, okay, did your character go to the bridge? Yes or no? No, he didn't. He's got to go to the bridge. Okay. Did he meet the doppelgangers? Did he meet the doubles or the clones? Yes. Yes or no? Did they kill him? Yes or no? That kind of thing. You pick this scenario or you pick that scenario. And either the clones kill him or they cut his nuts off. Or worse, or something. But yes, that'd be pretty bad. Nuts off or be killed. But yes, yeah, you couldn't win them to get these games. You couldn't win them. Yeah, there's not going to be any updates of them. Although if somebody wants to take those ideas and make like a weird like walkthrough shooter kind of space opera thing, I'm sure the Vine Sauce people will review it. But I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. I don't know how to create game mods at all. Don't do any of that. Never got that far into programming, but flunked out of programming class years ago and ever. Didn't really have the math for that. But writing the stories, I can still write the stories. Yeah, so yeah, I have the English and German. Anyway, so yeah, didn't flunk out of those. Anyway, so yeah, that is the making of so far tonight. So I don't know how much filming of this there is today. Just this little part here. Making of, in the original script. Yeah. So there's a little. It's complicated. The middle of the script. Yeah. So yeah. So there's a lot of melee of exposition in here and stuff, and just not knowing early astronomy in the 80s and 90s. For one thing. When I was younger, didn't know early astronomy, before astronomy class, thought Sirius was red. It's a red giant, and there was like a white dwarf in orbit of it. And it should have a rogue planet, because Star Blazers had a rogue planet in it. And other things had rogue planets in them, like a Star Wars Death Star, but it's a planet. Planet ship thing. I don't think it was entirely a Death Star, though, because it was like more like a planet. And there was other planets like New Barbados and Damien and other weird names for planets. Early Planetcom, basically, names. Originally, it appears that originally these Matrix Brother guys in the original story were these two other guys who later became sort of evolved into three guys, the Cervantes brothers. But in this version, it's a different set of guys on a different planet. It's not them. It's just a different set of them. And you have there's a rogue planet thing that could be in orbit. It's kind of by accident would orbit Sirius B, the white dwarf, because yeah, how would it be a viable planet? But it would have to be a rogue planet that'd been brought in by aliens, because otherwise there wouldn't be a viable planet there. I didn't know either way at the time it was written. But then again, Star Trek was always doing that with stars and planets as well. Rigel and Deneb and all these giant stars they saw in the sky, and Aldebaran, and they're like, oh yeah, these giant stars we know about. We didn't check to see if they were actually viable stars. We just names of stars. We just like those names. We use them without realizing that's not going to work. Not going to want to change about that. The next scene is a little bit odd in the story. They mentioned the Barbados in there. It's one of the planet ships. It's in the system, I guess. But in the story, in the context of the story, we're on page 91 and 92 of a 107-page script, so it's a little over 100 minutes. And we shouldn't be jumping to other solar systems. So it's not going to be Sirius at all. They're in the same general vicinity in this next scene. They go to meet Ron Mako, the evil rogue version of Mako that's been on the planet. He was originally sort of he was a Sandoval, but before that he was somebody else. He's not really a Sandoval. He's not really related at all to the Sandovals from a long time ago at all. I just stole a last name and used it. So we changed it to Mako. March cards approved. Said, okay, it's the other Mako. But is Mako really a good guy or a bad guy anyway? So it's Mako. It's one of his relatives. And it would have also caused a bizarre can of worms thing in that the other... apparently, Anton's character, Flores as well is the name. This version, Flores as well. Yeah, they kept changing names around. I just wanted to include everybody, so it was all inclusive. Not realizing that making half of them having half of them Latin is fine, but then making them roguish bad guys with like basically probably handlebar mustaches and sombreros is kind of offensive. Yeah, so don't do that. So I kind of changed that to make it the Matrix guys instead. They also imply that the others are gone. Deep Space Nine is mentioned, which is funny. Yeah, there's but I added that. They just said his parents are gone. Anyway, so yeah, the brother is originally in the beginning of the story with him in all the other scenes in the script, and then he leaves, and that fixes the plot hole that he left, and now he's gone to this other place, and then they're going to go to the other place with him, so they're going to meet up with him later. I think you can fix that by having this next scene. He's just physically he's not there but mentioned, and then he's in the hospital room scene with Elijah later on. That would make more sense. Is that he Anton, the other brother, he's not with the rogues on the rogue planet. That would make no sense. They just mention him. Yeah. And then later on he goes on another mission. Also, this rogue planet isn't really a rogue planet. It's just called that because there are rogue rebel people on it. Clearly, we are dealing with the rebel Terrans from the earlier stories. We're dealing with something like a Protozoary group, the Charlie and the others. The Charlie are more like Techites. They're like kind of like bears in this one, I guess. They're like Robotech characters, like Karabarians. Yeah, but not directly. Nothing is directly. They're not literally saying, oh, they're visiting Robotech planets at all. It's just that they seem like them. So let's make that clear. They seem like them. And the other stuff seems like something else. It seems like it's a political thriller about sort of a post-Picard Earth type of thing going on, and it's 2025 in our universe and 24/3 in theirs. But it's not. It's just like that. It was close enough that I said, oh, this is like that. I'm going to do this story in this series because it's like that. But if you read too much into it, as Mark's card said, that would be foolish because it's not. It's 20, 25, 30 years ago, according to the story before. And some you can tell where they added stuff, where we added stuff later on to kind of reference the War on Terror and stuff like that. But that was clearly added later. The Gahiri stuff was earlier than that. So it would be some other group, some kind of cult thing. Probably a reference to like Waco in the 90s, I guess. But before that, some other group. Maybe Jonestown. I don't know. I don't know what they're referencing. But in the game version, you had all of these different places to go to. And Cirrus was one of the stars. But obviously it can't be Cirrus. That's screwy. And it's even better that it isn't, because then you can just say, oh, they're on this planet that's Earth-like, and they just have a number of planets. Sort of taking the Firefly route, which is a little light as well. But before we watched Firefly, it's long before that, it's the 90s. So even though the books came out in the 2019 or so, 2019, 2020, but the original story goes back to the late 80s and early 90s. The Kim Tucson saga is what it's called. And this is a very early version of that. And it's not changed much, which is... but yeah, that's what we called it. It was also the Barbados saga, the New Barbados. Again, because I just took a name that sounded cool. I did not realize anything about it. I just thought, that was a cool name. I'm going to use that. I didn't know what I was doing. Barbados and Barbados. Star Trek does that too. Termarians. Stuff like that. Damnanib is like 5 different people. Deneb is 5 different people. Kantarians is 5 different people. So yeah, yeah. So fix it so that the bad guy isn't out of the solar system. He's actually still in the same solar system. He goes to this rogue place, or a rogue place that's similar, and he lands there. So that the other guy can get back to the home planet real quick, if he wants to. And our main bad guys are not that far off. Exile Retracted, I think is the title of this story, this season, this book. So that's what I'm going to do, because you're literally like pages away from the end. So, yeah, adding anything extra, an extra planet, an extra trip would be problematic. Just make it in the solar system. It's another planet, but it's in the solar system. Another ship they go to. Yeah. Closer in, where it's they go closer in toward Venusian type of place. As opposed to a cold place, they go to a hot place. Yeah, the Tammy and the planet. What was I? Oh well, the name is still thrown in there as a gag, but yeah. And in the Canary space, we'll call that Barbadis and Damien are the homeworlds of the Toddemus, the masochistic, misogynistic, alien bad guy, lizard people, lizard raptor guys, and who were wiped out in the Q like flash by the Queen Lady in Canary space at the end of it, so that they wouldn't have to deal with the next books at all. Because I wanted to say this is it. We're 1 season. You still have the scripts, but yeah, this being an early one is fun. Also, so now the Charlie, which kind of doesn't make sense, but sure, we'll just go with it here because it only doesn't make sense to me in the story. And when you watch the episode, you'll go like, oh, they're just Techites. Okay, we know what Techites are. Yeah, so they're sort of like, oh, so it's not really reinventing a race. It's just saying, oh, it's another, like that Termarellian thing being 5 different races. It's just they're using a name that they thought to use. Because, yeah, I don't want to pay attention too much. Don't worry about it. Continuing, brief making of, just to mention that actually Anton should be there in the scene. And because he's sort of a changeling. Okay, changing thing. Changeling. Okay, so let's do this. Let's keep going. A little bit of an evening shoot here. Here you go. Okay, making of, second unit, last like minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes of, a half a page of dialogue. And this movie is in the can. Let's do this. Yeah. Saturday evening and night shoot. Didn't know that we were actually going to finish this today. Finished it. So it's done. Story. Maybe I'll discuss some of the behind the scenes stuff later as I'm putting it together, and then we'll see what I always have a little bit to add to the end together. Mako is a bad guy, but he's double triple agent, so he's sort of an anti hero, as he was in the stories originally as well. So he's not completely out of character. So apparently, there's another the other brothers are explained. It's Kiriyoshi and Molly copies. That's kind of funny. But no, he doesn't end up being a bad guy. So it's not like he's not making fun of a trans character at all. He's just, that's what his universe version of him is. That's all. So if anything, he's a good guy. He escapes. Anton there, he gets away. He's helped the fleet in the story. And there's always the bombshell. We're on Space-Time Eye. Here we go. So, this is Calcat the Calcatster. There's been a John Knight. The finished film of the, I guess it's not really a Halloween special, but it happens to be coming out the week before Halloween, so it's like a Halloween special. It's not really. The whole season has kind of been a Halloween special. It's 81 minutes long. The finished Starfighter thing was the warped core, the core as in corpse, like not body but core as in corpse, like the French word corpse, core ministry, that kind of thing. So that's in there. and I went out for a walk, came back. It's the beginning of it's Friday today. It's the 24th. It's a week from Halloween, and I think before we even go on and I get to watch this 80-minute film, it doesn't need more footage. It doesn't need add-ons. It's very direct. All the dialogue's there. It explains itself. There was a scene where the Exile Retracted, where the script is actually 107 pages, but the film movie is 81 with credits. So it's 2 minutes of credits on either end. So it's not that it's a little short, that it needs it to add more. It's I think if you're going to add more to this would be the making of, then add to this. You're not going to really need a post-mortem on the making of the episode. I think everything works. But I think you do need to add, I think we need to explain something, a little bit of something as to what's going on, why are these characters playing different people. All of a sudden, it needs that, I think. To establish, there needs to be some establishment there, which wasn't in the original games, which you don't need to know. But yeah, if this is linked to that zombie story that we did after the Brady Bunch story, and the zombies that spread out across the universe, then there's to be some explanation for why they are where they are and why they are playing different people. And if it is not them and they're just different people, then why is that? There kind of has to be something. I wouldn't necessarily change the narrative. It would probably be bookends on the beginning and the end, just because that'd be where you'd put it. The mystery is not that they are the core people. The mystery is that they are the people. They kind of do that. I know they kind of do that. But I want to reveal the mystery a bit. Some of the characters do drop out from the first act and are not seen again in the second, third. It is a little jarring. Some of the other ones do the same thing in the middle of the second act. Those particular characters should probably step through the looking glass, so to speak, and be in the final act, saying something. I'm not sure if you don't need to fill it in to make it 90 minutes. That's not the point. The point is to fix plot hole. And there's kind of a plot hole in that why are they doing that? Why are these guys the other characters, breaking character? Who are they? What is going on in this other universe, and why are they're making it still a little mysterious. Yeah, council and the elders and all that. I think you can get away with that with as few characters as possible. Discussing it, it's not necessarily the Q. It's not necessarily not the Q. It's sort of the Cillians are observing this other timeline. Also, you've listed some characters in the credits that are not in this story. You might introduce them in the story. That might be them. But maybe not. Maybe you want to leave them, out. And I think the characters in the room should be the beginning and the end, and shouldn't impact the narrative. It is jarring when we jump from the ice planet, the end of the second act, I think it is, before the other stuff, and then they go to the ship. There was originally a narrative in there dealing with mentioning the stuff that was going on. You might throw one of those in there, put the narrative back, but as not a narrative, but a discussion, a short, very short discussion. So yeah, you want to do those things to kind of address stuff. You could do it like the Q judge in Q in the Man to Q episode, and have him just go, oh, the mysterious figure, I'm talking to you, mysterious figure, and you're obviously a Q. But it's really obvious, and you're just there, and I'm talking to you, and you have to do this and that. The other Cassins, the Martins. Martins is not listed in the credits. incidentally. But that doesn't matter because he's a minor character. And also, when you listed, redid the credits, you listed the characters as special guest stars. There were some special guests, allegedly, that were clearly the Ackman character, that probably that other one, that, so yeah, I would just go back right now and add those scenes, and they're not really adding scenes. You are fixing the narrative. You're making it flow better. It needs to have a little flow better. And Mark's cards, Calcat, discussing the nature of doing a animated action figure movie where there's not much movement versus a live action movie where they do live action stuff, and it bores some of the critics to do like live action where they're talking in a room. I agree with some of that, but in this case, if they're saying this is boring, they just don't understand it, and it's hard for them to follow along. This script is not hard to follow along. If you understand what a Calcat story, I've been doing these for years and years, you get it. It's pretty straightforward. They go. It's a western. That's the theme. It's a space western. They go to find the Desperado's bad guy ship. There he is, and and actually Mako is an anti-hero, so that's perfectly fitting with his character that he's in there, and that's great. He's not the original John Mako, he's Ron Mako, so he's just his relative, apparently. And they don't do the Jupiter experiment. No, Picard Season 3 already did that, with the Borg Queen. But they do the kind of the oil down. Not really. So add some stuff. A few little snippet scenes, just to not to fill it in, not to add filler, not to make it a little more than 80 minutes, but because there are scenes in this movie that quite add up, and you need to sell it, push it ahead, sell it. Okay, scene pickups. This is a scene in the early on in the story, probably before the credits, really, right after the teaser, probably, in terms of where this is going on, because these guys or it's probably right after they get sent away, actually. So this is, gonna be. So this is before episode 1 even starts, but it's just a little bit of a teaser to that, giving them their orders, kind of. That's kind of what I want to do. Next scene will be a little later in the story, after the this guy Roshenko disappears from the rest of the story. So what this scene is going to be making of, what this scene is going to be is Roshenko. This is where he's been. So he's going to be facing. He's already faced this guy. So this is where he's been. This is going to be the scene that fills in the gap where they're discussing the nature of the ship. In the other transition moment, I believe, the one where it's jarring, the one where they jump to the fleet and they're out already. Well, let's get him and Flip in there. That'd be cool. Him and Flip, and these other guys who are actually in the credits, who are going to be right here. I shouldn't have kept it. I'm gonna fix that. Where's that? I'm gonna have her say this. I'm gonna link it up to that scene. Okay. Where is that? So, in case you want to know where this is, It is... It is... Pause it. Okay, making of. This is before scene 10. This is before we're having the discussion with the core ministry discussing. It's before Matrix discusses with Iron Crass the thing, the planet and their plans. Say page 88. If you want to know. Anyway, so yeah. Making of. This is a scene immediately after all the other scenes and on the spaceship. The council. See the council. And what this is basically this character is no longer in the show at all. And then Shad is going to replace the character. And then there's the other ones replacing them. She's barely in it again at this point. And so there's a number of things that aren't being addressed. So let's do that.